Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the
And welcome back. I'm Mike with the Turntable. Teachers and Classes back in session, here for another guest speaker episode at AOA Studios. If you're an artist, podcaster, or content creator of any kind, make sure to reach out to us at aoastudios.org to book your session or service today. So we took a little bit of a detour last episode with Dylan Reese. We went to the Record Co. in Boston, recorded it there. You know, we obviously had to have, some type of, accommodation for Dylan coming all the way out from LA. And we have another artist today that actually made the journey back out to AOA. So now we're obviously, as you can see, back in AOA. But this man is from Massachusetts as well, like Dylan is, but is actually in the other, I would say, mecca of the United States, which is New York City. Yes, sir. And this is his third time on the podcast, your third appearance, which I looked back. And I could be wrong, but I think you are the only one to have be a 3-time guest on the show.
That's crazy. That's an honor.
So I think you'll be the first one.
That's fire,
which is kind of crazy, unless I'm mistaken. But I'm like pretty sure you're the first one. But of course, this is none other than TAHA, joining us back once again.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, bro. How you been?
Been good, man. It's been good. It's been a long. This year's felt long, but like in a good way. Like everyone's like, "Oh, short year," but I'm like, I don't know. I just did a lot this year. I feel like there was a lot of change in like a good way. I think.
Yeah.
But like, it was like a long year. Everyone's like, "Oh, this year went by so fast." I was like, "This year was like long." Like I was like, "Dang," like it was like crazy.
Yeah, I feel like in some ways it went really fast, but then in others, like I hear you. It was definitely like a not a drag. That feels like a negative connotation, but yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of things that happened in 2024.
Just like so much, like so much was happening, and I felt like I was doing so many things, and like it was crazy. Like people were talking to me like, "Oh, dang, like you did this and this," and I was like, "Yeah, dude, like it's crazy."
Yeah, well, now we're in 2025 as this is being dropped, so like new year now, which is awesome, and
I think so.
So normally, traditionally on this episode, on this show, we do the 3 segments. We do the objective, get to know TAHA, the main lesson, get to find out what he's got going on right now, pop quiz, all that sort of stuff. But TAHA's kind of done all that, so we're just gonna
chop it up.
We're just gonna chop it up. We're gonna kick it. I got some questions for you, like some topics I wanted to talk about with what you did in 2024. But since you last came on the show, we're just gonna it's gonna be a little bit more freeform. So for our like regular listeners, this is probably gonna be like again slight detour as last episode was. That one was more aesthetically, of course. This one's gonna be more within the actual process. So yeah, I mean, I want to talk to you first about you moving to New York. Like I feel like that's like we got to talk about that because you haven't been on since you left for New York. Last time you were on, we did like a album run through of your Have Nightmares About Me. Our project, which was great. It's out now, and then his new project, The Fall, is also out right now. Yeah. So we'll talk about that one pretty soon. But I want to talk to you about New York, bro. So like, you move out there. You've been about there a year and a half now?
It's been like 3 years now, actually.
You've been 3 years there?
3 years, yeah.
No way.
I think so. Yeah.
No
it's like,
shit.
I guess. Well, maybe it's like 2.5.
2.5?
Because I moved right at May 2022.
So that makes sense. So almost, so you are coming up on 3 years then.
Yeah, coming up on 3 years, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I know, it's been a while.
That went so fast.
That went by fast.
Holy shit.
This year was long, but that went
fast.
Yeah,
Wow.
that went fast.
No, now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. I think 2022 does make sense because I was still living in my North Andover house. I do remember that when you moved. No shit. All right, so talk to me a little bit about how it's going, like what you've been learning about New York, like that transition. What was that like? I know like it's definitely a much more lively city than Boston is, and I know that's like you love the liveliness, you love the raves, you love you love partying, like that's just like you love the crazy mosh pits, all that sort of shit. Like that's just you. That's that type of music you make. But how has that transition been like for you, just living in New York, and how has it maybe like helped like your creativity as an artist?
That's real. Yeah, it's like interesting. Like I feel like there's such a difference when I first came to New York and this recent year. Because this recent year there was like so much change that was happening. Like I ended a relationship and then like moving to a different part of Brooklyn and just like that was already so much. So I feel like I did so much in this last year than I did throughout my whole time in New York. But initially when I first came to New York, I remember like how do I say this? Like there's just so much. There's so much, in the city I feel like is very transient. And so therefore like people are coming and going, but also the city itself, like businesses are falling and coming and like going and artists are coming in, they're coming out. Like there's just so much movement. And that's like really nice in a way, but could be it's interesting to navigate. A lot of people have said that like kind of building community long term could be kind of a challenge. I haven't really hit that point yet, right? Because I've only been there for 3 years. But like if like, if I was there for like 10 years or so, like I've had people been like, it's interesting, like a lot of people coming and going. But when I first came there, there's this excitement and there's this drive of like, okay, I'm in this city, I gotta make it, like there's New York, there's so much there's such a history there. There's a lot of people that come and go and people who've stayed and like really made an imprint. And then like, there's like a really cool, like, I don't know, when I was there was just like this grungy scene, of like all these people who look different and then just like, all these scenes and spaces that were really, what I saw was just dedicated to like the alternative artists. And that was like really cool to check that out. And like, being a part of that, like when I first got there, immediately I already knew, because like what I did before coming to New York is I like was on Instagram just digging, like looking who's the artist, who are these people, and I found that they were doing these shows. So the minute we got there, I unpacked my bags and I was like, all right, we're going to this thing. Yeah. So we went to this show and people were like moshing and everything. They're just talking and they're like, it's like this super different scene, right? It's just like a different energy that New York has too, where it's like, I don't know, it's like how do I put this? I love it because it's a kind of like a fuck you attitude, but it's also like very kind in a way. I don't know. Like I feel like overall New York has a lot of contradictions, which is why I love it. Like there's so many people, but it's also so much loneliness. There's so many buildings. There's so much like, like buildings, but there's so much homelessness. There's so much grit and dirt, and yet there's so much love and kindness as well in that city. So I feel like when I first got there, like I felt like this drive to really make it mine and really lift the imprint. And then I was just like doing things and like connecting with DJs, I had all this audio gear and I was like, okay, I'm like an audio person. I'm going to like bring gear to your house and things like that and like help you out in that way. And it was cool. But then like the only thing with New York is it's also like peak capitalism. So it's just like, I felt like this drive to also make a lot of money. And then like, and so that was like the interesting thing to navigate. So that as an artist and then being like, oh fuck, there's like this artist scene, but there's also this part where I'm like, shit, I really got to make money. I felt like as a man too, like I felt that drive, like, like a lot of this drive to just like I remember walking to stores, this dude's like getting this jacket, he's like $8,000. Oh, that's easy, and I was like, damn, like I'm not dropping 8K, no sweat, you know what I mean? Like that's exactly. A lot. That's a lot. So like hearing that,
you and me both.
Like, but it's interesting, like, a lot of like, just like a lot of people there, like there's just like all these different lives and different gaps and wealth and everything. So I think that was like at first I started hitting hard and then I felt like, fuck, I started like feeling this pressure to just make so much more money than I was making. And I started focusing more on like my 9 to 5 and that stability. Right. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Cause I mean, we still have obviously stayed in touch over since the entire time you've been there, basically. I feel like we've been in pretty decent touch. And, but one of the things I feel like I remember you saying that as you were talking, it dawned on me, it's not something I thought about before, but I do remember when you were here, like you were feeling like there really wasn't an alternative scene here for you that felt like where you fit in. Like, of course, there's a Massachusetts music scene here, and it's awesome. And as we know, like I champion it all the time. But there are certain, obviously, cliques and pockets within that, and I think you're right in the sense that, especially at the time, there really wasn't like a specific alternative music scene that you felt like you could connect with, or that you felt like people were receiving your music in a way that you were like hoping that people would. And so I'm happy to hear that you kind of found like a community out there that actually is like-minded and maybe has some similar interests and similar like theories about certain, music styles and stuff like that. Like that's a really cool piece of it for you that I'm glad you found out there. And sounded like you found pretty quickly. Like I remember hitting you up like one of the first few months you were out there, like, dude, like this is what I was looking for. And I'm like, awesome, that's great. But So that I love that part of it, but then I love what you said too about the duality of like the city too, because it's not even something that like I think you put it very beautifully in like how you sort of showed like the contrast of like all these different sort of hypocritical like aspects of the city, and and I feel like that's just like I think to a larger degree sort of like how America could be seen, you know what I mean? And I think like when the biggest, and I think that makes sense because the biggest cities in the country that have those sort of elements to it are going to be probably reflective of the larger sort of like whole that is, you know, the United States. But no, like I found that to be, you know, obviously great that you found a community out there, but interesting enough too that like you're saying, like I didn't also consider like the ins and outs of like how people maybe are coming in and coming out more so than you would think. I feel like once people maybe get to New York, they'd stay. I didn't really consider like how many people would be leaving rather than you know going there. So
because like jobs is a big thing.
Yeah,
your career change and also starting a family. Like people like at a certain point.
Yeah, hard to start a family in New York City, I would imagine.
I think so. You know, some people they make it work, but I think others like you know I think they crave something else. You know, something like they want like a home. You know, they want like to try to buy a home. They want that or like something different, more space. You know, they just.
Oh yeah, I'm sure space is a huge issue. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it really is. Like, so I think like I think other people just you know they try it out and then they're like this worked for this amount of time.
Right.
But now I'm reaching like maybe my late 30s here, or like I just turned like 32. Like maybe I don't want to do this anymore, or like maybe I want like a different scene. Like, but I've also it's interesting with New York. I've had people they compare it to like a toxic ex. Like, you know, like that ex where you know it's not the best for you, but like, and you might need to take some space, but you'll always miss. Like that type of thing. So, yeah.
Fair enough. So, with you getting into more of like the moshes, the raves, the DJ part of it, I know that's been a big factor for you. And then I know you also took a little bit of like, I don't want to say take time off, but there was like definitely a lull for you musically.
Yeah, definitely.
So, talk to me a little bit about that part of your journey, not even just in New York, but just as like a person and as like a musician. Like, I know there was a huge dip for a while, and you were even like a little unsure if you were going to make music again. So, like, talk to me about like how you found yourself in that spot, and like how you got yourself out of it.
Yeah, you know, I think a big thing was just like during that time in New York, like I was like, I felt this pressure to be like a provider. I felt this pressure. Like I don't know, like not only is it peak capitalism, but it also means that it's peak heteronormativity. I feel like, and I feel like this need to be like, oh, as a man, what does a man mean? You know, and I started looking at other definitions instead of coming up with my own. And I was like looking at these definitions of someone who's like providing and making tons of money and like just spending money on everyone else but themselves, and like, and then I started feeling like if that is the definition of success and what a man is there really any space for my art here? You know, and then. So I was wrestling with that. And then at the same time, I think, you know, I was trying to navigate finding these producers and everything. And they were like, you know, it was, you know, I respect people get your bag, but like they were expensive, you know, they were like this one dude charging me like $500 a beat, which I'm like, get your bag. I respect that. But then a part of me is like the immigrant mentality was like, I'll just do this myself. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like thinking about it. Cause I'm like paying $500 for a beat that I don't even like. And I'm like, why do I feel forced to do this? And like, I was like, let me take a step back. So during that time where I'm like wrestling with all these other things, I still had that drive for music, but it was more towards learning. So I sat and I learned production. Like I got Ableton. I studied different types of synthesis, different types of production. Like the biggest thing is like, look at the genres that you like, look at the artists within those genres. And then what do they like to do? Literally look at their interviews. Who inspires them? What are, you know, YouTube's such a great resource because there's so many like people who are like
YouTube University, baby.
YouTube University, literally. Because like you go on that and then you find these people and they're just like, literally like there's, you know, like on, like, I don't know, Rhythm Roulette or anything, like they'll just break down the beat. Like they break down their process and you can study that and find there's different types of like drum patterns, like Euclidean rhythms or generative synthesis or generative drums or just like break beats and jungle and like boom bap, and you just like study it, you know. And I sat back and I was recreating and just studying it. So while I was navigating just like, you know, just like feeling like, my job I didn't love, you know, and then I was like, feeling like this pressure to be this provider and, you know, from the city and just from my interpersonal relationships. And like, you know, I still was finding this out through studying music and studying production. And I feel like what came to a point was, you know, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to, I think I tried taking that definition of what others people say what success is and what, you know, what it means to be a man and what it means to be successful, right? And then I tried wearing that mask, right? And it sucked. I felt claustrophobic. I wasn't happy, you know. And I did this for like years. And my friends, my family, they were like, "You just sound stressed all the time. You just sound like you're never doing enough. You know, you just don't. You doesn't sound like you're enjoying yourself." Everyone around me was like, "You don't sound like." The close friends were like, I miss you making music. I thought you like when I dropped recently. They were like, I thought you quit. You know. So I think what came to a point was I got discouraged from being in this city. And being around that peak capitalism. And then when I was just at a certain point, I was like, I'm not happy. And at a certain point, I was like, that actually means something, you know? Like, unfortunately, I wish it was like, it would be sick if money was just like the cure-all. But it wasn't. Like, I started making good cash and I was like, I'm still depressed. I'm still anxious. I'm still not happy. But one of the few things in my life that makes me so happy is music. And I've been studying and I haven't been able to let go. And also I was learning other skills too, because I was like, I wanted to stand out. So I started learning like 3D animation, like Blender. Yeah. And I started like learning that and like what that means and like studying like things that inspire me, like old video game graphics, like PS1, which is like, or N64, which they kind of call low poly, which is like less kind of like shapes and whatnot, like less geometry for the shapes. Like, you know, if you look at like a GTA or like a super high def, like, oh wow, it looks like the actual humans there. That's like high res, like a lot of geometry is going into that like model, that video game model to make it look that real. But like, you know, when something's like quote unquote blocky or whatever, there's less geometry. But for me, I was like, I like that because there's an aesthetic to that. It also is significantly easier to recreate and kind of get into. Less on my computer, you know, like, but there was something beautiful about that aesthetic, and I saw it rising in a way in that scene in New York. I saw jungle music coming up, and I saw like that these visuals of like low poly and like reminiscent of like old video games like coming up, and I was like I like that. It gives me comfort, and I think that was a thing. I think, you know, like I was like at a certain point, like I think I just needed comfort, and so I got it through music and the animation. I think that's what gave at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it's so funny too, like how you think certain things that you think you want and need are what you want and need, and then when you have them, you're like, oh, maybe this wasn't actually it.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, especially with the money part of it, like I'm glad you said that. Like I hope that someone else is listening to this right now, whoever they may be, whatever their like skill set is or whatever they do career wise, and like just come to terms with the fact that like, yeah, it doesn't make us happy, because at the end of the day, like clearly the most rich people in this fucking world are not that happy.
Dude, I like
if anything.
It's crazy.
If I would say, and I think that's putting it lightly to say not that happy, like miserable, hateful, mean, like cruel. Yeah. So it has nothing to do with like, you would think that, oh, all this money in the world like would fulfill you in some way, or like that it would be enough, but it's not enough.
It's not.
Because all you want is just more and more and more and more of it, you know, versus with when you're making art or you're doing something creative, or you're doing something that, it doesn't have to be creative. It can just be something that's fulfilling. Yeah. There's less of a, it just eats at you less, you know what I mean? There's less of a societal norm that makes it so that you like, that it feels like you need to have that. Yeah. But at the same time, I think that being somebody that is so focused on just making money, like that doesn't, I don't know. I think that there's a flaw there, or an insecurity there that I think people don't talk about enough of, you know what I mean? Like, and again, I know it's a necessity thing. Like you need to have it to survive and live. And like, I get all that, but like, the problem is that it'll never. There's. I don't think there's a point like a dollar number that most people have in their head. Like if I had that amount of money, I'd be happy. Yeah. And even if you do achieve that, I feel like it gets to the point where you just continuously want more and more and more of it. You know, it's almost like that. It's like that dopamine hit. You know, and it's not maybe as productive as people want to like say it is. So again, I know it's like a necessity thing, but you know.
No, you saying like money's a drug. And it is. Like people don't talk about it. Like, you know, it's so funny how like things are normalized. Like they're like alcohol is like totally normalized, but that's like a drug too, you know?
Oh my God, dude.
Like,
yeah, it's more, I mean, it's not even like, it's a scientific fact that like alcohol is a lot more dangerous than a ton of these drugs that are banned or not legal. You know what I mean? Like I'm a huge advocate for psychedelics, and I was really sad when it didn't pass in Massachusetts this year. I'm happy that it was on the bill, or it was on the ballot for it to be potentially voted on. But when it didn't come to fruition and it didn't pass, it's like damn, still, it feels like we should be at that point where it's like, all right, because there's enough research out there too, and like scientific facts that have proven that like psychedelics are incredibly beneficial if you use them in the controlled, correct settings. Not so much like, okay, I'm just gonna go drink and then do a bunch of psychedelics like that, or party with them. Like that's not the purpose. Like that purpose initially should be for some type of therapeutic aspect. But or like marijuana, like finally it's at a point where a lot of states have it legalized for medicinal purposes or recreational, but there's still it's still not federally legal. You know what I mean? So it's like, how something like alcohol that people have so many problems with breaks up so many families. People have shown massive amounts of abuse using, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's still legal. And it's because there's like you said, it's a capitalistic society. There's an industry around it. And those are hard things to break. No,
for sure. Yeah. And like, it's just the same thing with like money. People say income's like a drug your employer gives you to keep you like, okay. And again, I say that with like a grain of salt because like you need money. But also
of course, I know it's hard to compartmentalize the two.
Exactly,
it is. But like, when you're having these conversations, it's like it the day to day maybe you don't think about it, but when you sit down and take a step back and you're like, oh yeah, this is actually like a lot more toxic than we really come to realize. But I'm glad like you found solace in creativity because I feel like that's huge. That's what it should be like, you know what I mean? You should find solace in your creativity, So good for you to be able to kind of find it way back. And also like, I'm sure I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like this is probably the case that you feel like a lot stronger and well-rounded as a creative now that you actually took some time to like sit back and learn some new skills.
Yeah, dude. Like, unfortunately also with the city is like, I don't know, I feel bad saying this, but I have developed more of an armor. Like I am less trusting because there were people who took advantage of me. I was very green-eyed. I was like, I'll help you, I'll give you my equipment, and they're like, yeah, I'll pay you, and they are never getting paid for it. Doing these services, never getting paid for it. People like almost stealing my shit. Like people like like saying they'll pull up on me. Like there was a lot of things navigating that city that did happen, and so like that did like I navigated those very well. But just being in in proximity to that, I did build more of an armor. So like I feel like I just was like, I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna become more of an asset, for myself. Not even just so others can like me more, but so that I can do what I want. And that has been,
you can have that self autonomy to like, dude, do your thing. No, I get it. I totally understand. Yeah,
literally, like that's
especially to learn production, right? So now you don't need to rely on that. You can get the sounds that you actually want.
Yeah, and it's like it makes me feel like that 10 times more. I don't know. I had a different relationship with my music. Like it was just beautiful. It was just generally like I enjoyed I'm like, yo, these beats are crazy. Like I'm like, that's crazy, and I'm like sampling and like, because I would co-produce a lot, and like some of the tracks I would like produce like majority of it, but then I was like, I'm fully learning this. I'm like on a new DAW and like everything, like coming from FL, and then I just bought Ableton, and it just works well for my workflow, and it was awesome. It was great. I encourage everyone to like learn production. I encourage everyone who just, even if you just like listen to music, like just learn production, just learn what the artists go through, because I feel like you'd like love it even more. And
there's an appreciation factor that comes into play with that.
Most definitely.
No, 100%. And I want to pivot now. It feels like a good time to do so. Is talk about The Fall. Which is a great body of work. And I remember you sending it to me early, and I got a chance to listen to it, and I was very impressed with it then. And now as I've been able to sit with it, I'm liking it even more. And so you fully produced the whole thing, right? It was like every single beat is yours. That's awesome. And then obviously you have vocals on each song. The question I have for you though to start about this project is your sister.
Yo.
Because that's fucking cool.
She crazy.
Yeah, dude. So tell for our audience that doesn't really know. So you can tell it probably better than I can, but I'll set you up for it. So you got your sister on a couple of tracks, and she's not really like traditionally like a vocalist or an artist. Like it's not something she just kind of does. Like you kind of like coaxed her to do it.
Yeah.
Basically. Right.
Yeah. Or shout out Ermina, dude. Like she crazy. So like what? She was always like doing the fucking like choir stuff. Like she was taking singing classes, and she was always doing the choir, and she's always singing. Like she was always singing, but she's not like a recording artist. And so I was just like, I want you on this song. Like, I was like, I'm not the greatest singer, but I was like, I can do this, but you on it, boom, it would be amazing. And she was just down. She was just down. I've like, you know, we've done like stuff in the car, we're driving, and I'm like rapping on a beat and she's singing on it. And I was like, you know, let's just do this. And so I shout out to my friend Griffin. They had like a studio in Worcester. And so, because, you know, I was like, I can get her to New York, but it's kind of hard. And my mom was like, New York's scary. It's terrifying. And I'm like, you know, so I was like, I don't know what to do. But my friend Griffin, shout out Griffin, they were like, yo, just have your sister come to my studio. And so I had Ermina come. Me and her were at the studio, and you know, she was just like, you know, kind of like not even freaking out or anything, just so calm and cool. And I was talking to Griffin, and then they were setting up like all the studio monitors and the mic and everything, and she was like a natural. And that's the biggest part. Like, people need to know, like, singing is not the hard part. The hard part is being comfortable in the studio. And you would probably know this with your own studio. Like, right? We were talking, so many artists, it's not even about talent. It's like, do you know you're talented? Right? And that's the thing is she fucking, not only was she good in the booth, but she got even better and better in that recording session. And that was something where my friend Griffin, the engineer, was like, they were saying, I'll be so real. Because also, my little sister is 16. Like, crazy. Like, singing like an angel at 16. Like, those pipes, crazy. Like, singing so good. Like, my friend Griffin, they said, like, you know, because they're in a band with other vocalists. And they were like, you're on par with them.
That's awesome.
That's crazy. And the biggest thing was that, like, Ermina, the fact that you're able to be in this booth and be comfortable, and you got better. You started doing creative choices, you know, and that comes with confidence. That comes with feeling yourself and being in tune with yourself and being confident with yourself. And so she just got more and more confident, and it was amazing. Like, yeah, dude.
That's so cool.
It was beautiful.
She's on 3 tracks on the
She's
on the
on
album,
3
right?
tracks, yeah.
She's on Fall Forward.
Yeah, Fall
I want
Forward.
to say Fall Back. Fall Forward, and then
Yeah.
she's on Send Them Off. No, Send Them Off.
She is on Send Them Off.
And then what's the
Close
other one?
Again. Yeah.
Close Again. That's right. That's the other
her
one.
main thing's on Fall Forward. Like, she really is singing with me.
She's a little bit more like,
yeah.
you know, lack of better word, no pun intended. She's a little bit more forward on that song than the. She's more complimentary. I feel like on the other two. Yeah. But still, like, that's got to feel good for you too, to be able to like give your sister like a platform to, and also to give her a little bit of confidence in like herself as a singer and as a potentially as an artist if she chooses that.
Oh
path.
yeah, I'm producing that album. That's happening. That's like gonna happen.
That's so cool. Now that's got to mean like they make this project like mean a little bit more to you in a lot of ways, like having her like such an integral part of it, really, you know?
Yeah, dude, she fucking killed it. Shout out Ermina, dude. Like, she just killed it. Like, it was like the direction she took it, you know, and just the fact that like she was singing over my beats was so beautiful, and she loved it too. Like, she was like, these songs are so good. Like, you know, she was like excited to be a part of it. You know, it's like sometimes you got a sibling and they're like, okay, I guess I'll be on your project. You know, like yeah, my brother's not that good, but I'll do it. But no, she was just like, this is awesome. Like, you're a great artist. I really like your music. I love your production, and like, I want being a part of this is like exciting. And then having her on that just made it even better. So like, she killed it. Ermina project will be coming soon.
Love that.
Like, I'm definitely gonna make that
Good
happen.
shit, man.
Yeah,
I love it.
Crazy.
So this production palette is gritty. It's darker. It's a little bit more, not as technically sound, but it's a little bit more of like the, I don't know, like the, I mean, I hate to just like say like Denzel Curry, JPEG Mafia-ish, but it also feels like very true to you. Like, it feels like production that is the most true, I think, to you I've heard. It's interesting because, you know, I think there's also some subtlety to these beats too, in a way. Yeah. So, you know, when you were creating the palette for these songs or this sort of the soundscape, like, what was your mindset going into it? Like, did you have like an intention of what you wanted them to sound like, or was it more of like a situation where you were going to kind of let your creative flow sort of like take it in the direction that it was going to naturally go in, I guess is the question.
It'd be the latter. That's a great question. Cause like, yeah, honestly, it was literally like just puzzle piecing. That's why I loved it. It's like a kid like figuring out Sudoku for the first time or something, you know, or like a crossword puzzle that people do on like New York Times. Like, I'm just gonna figure this out, you know, and like it felt like that. You know, obviously I draw inspiration from like video games, and I draw inspiration from like just storytelling and having a narrative and having these beats have like emotion to them. but then in specific genres like jungle and then drum and bass, obviously hip hop. I think punk rock is a huge inspiration. Like those things were like fueling it, but with those being the drivers of it, I was just puzzled. It was like playing with Legos or something. I'm just like, oh, does this fit? Nah, not really. Okay, oh, that sounds ass. I'm like, oh, wait, that sounds cool. And I'm like, okay, let's put an arpeggiator here. All right, word. Let's put some metal drums. Oh, this is crazy. Some pads, some bass. It's done. It's crazy, just like shit like that, and just like experimenting. And yeah, that's what it was. It literally felt like I was experimenting the whole time. It was awesome.
And that's a really cool part of it too, because then it comes off a little more authentic than if you had like a sort of a direction. I love this project. I think it is definitely, I think your rawest body of work, but in a good way. Yeah. Like I feel like it's kind of back to the roots of what you have always tried to be as an artist. Thanks. You know what I mean? More of an obscure, grittier, grimier type of alternative artist that you've always been, but this feels like a lot more. It's less refined, but in a good way. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's a little bit more atmospheric, and I feel like it draws you in a bit more than, because you've had like some songs that I thought would be like still of that echelon, but like are more like. Would be more catered to like being a quote unquote hit. Like I remember the song Steady off of off of Had Nightmares About Me. That was a little bit more, I think, catered to, it had that like alternative, grimier sort of sound to it, but I feel like it could have also, like if I had heard it on the radio, I probably wouldn't have thought twice. Yeah. Or like a song like Lately from your first project, right? Yeah. So like this body of work didn't feel like it had one of those. Like maybe Fall Forward would be like the one if I was to choose, but like, for the most part, it was a lot more of like a sound that would just be a little bit more underground, but in a good way. Yeah. So I feel like, I feel like always been though more true to like you as an artist. So it's pretty cool that you achieved that.
Thank you.
In terms of the sort of, in terms of the sentiment on the project, I know that there's definitely a story here, a little bit of a deeper story. Would love for you to like talk about it a little bit and sort of get into as much detail as you want to about like, where your headspace was, not from like a production side, but then from like a writing side.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's like, it's heavy. I mean, it kind of relates to even just like before, like how I felt like something gave, like, full transparency. I was coming out of like a 3-year relationship, and like it was mutual. Like I sat them down. I was like, I'm not really happy. I don't think you're happy. When you have that feeling when like everything's fucked, is usually something with you. Something with you has to change. And I felt that. And for the longest time, I felt like I was just putting others over myself, because I just didn't really like myself. Like I think I took like a really deep dive into my mental health and everything. And that's kind of like what this project was in a way. Like The Fall is kind of talking about like if you look at the album cover, it's kind of like crazy. Like it's kind of like, it's me falling, but like I'm like, yo, I'm like in it. Like
gives like Mortal Kombat vibes almost. You know what I mean? It's like it's pretty crazy. Yeah. So kind of cool with the gaming side of it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it almost feels like there's like a despair with it.
There is, in a way. There's like, but also it's like I'm gonna land this because I have to, and it's like that's how I took it. So like with The Fall is like I figured this just like sometimes like you just gotta like there's something that there's like an opportunity or a great change ahead of you, and you just gotta kind of fall into it, and just because you're falling doesn't mean you can't land, doesn't mean you can't, just because you're on a nosedive doesn't mean you can't pivot, and you can fall into something totally brand new. And I feel like I was taking time to learn a lot about like my mental health, like because there were certain things where like even with the last projects, like I was always like screaming. Like I was just like really angry.
You've always been, That was a very huge difference that I heard in your approach to this project. Yeah. It was a lot more, subtle's not the word, but it's a little bit more like reflective.
I think so. Yeah.
Because we talked about these on previous episodes, and just in general of your anger management. Yeah. Just from a longevity standpoint, being as a young kid to when you were a teen to, your early adult life. And I think that in a lot of ways it did reflect in some of the music. This didn't feel that way. The only song that it maybe had a little bit of that was Send Them Off, but it didn't have it from like a standpoint. It was just more of an aggressive song. It didn't really have like an underlying feeling of being like, I'm angry, like fuck the world. It was more or less of like a hype track.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
know,
Like it was almost like a rebirth.
I think so.
That you kind of hit at the end of the project, you know, versus, you know, there were plenty of songs on your previous works that are, you know, just angry, or Cocaine Jasper, where you're just being like almost like this other, you're almost going into this other world that was like super dark.
It was pretty bad, dude. Like, it was bad. Like, I don't know. I think a big thing is like, because I realized there was all these problems with me, and I was like, I can't use a relationship to like run away from this shit anymore. You know, and I was like, I also just don't love myself, and I think I need to learn how to do that. So I just did all this shit that I was like, I'm gonna go to the gym, and like I picked up boxing.
Oh, sick.
That was sick. Yeah, I recommend boxing to everyone. You need to punch some shit out. It's like,
you know who always tells me to do boxing is Mako, actually, as well. I'm
Mako
not
boxes?
like he does.
That's crazy.
Shout out to Mako. He boxes.
Mako.
Yeah.
Fire.
I don't know if he still does like as much as he used to, but I know for a long time he was like very into it.
That's sick.
Yeah,
that's fire. Yeah,
he might still be. I don't know, but
that's fire. I mean, my boxing is really important. Like, I be doing that before work. And like, you know, sometimes we have like an annoying client, and like my coworker's like, you handled that so well. I was like, yeah, you know, just people are gonna be people, you know, like, you know, everyone has their bad days, you know, like maybe that was just their bad day. They're like, wow, like how are you able to like handle this so calm? I was like, oh, I was like punching the shit out of this dude like 2 hours before. Like I was because I spar in the mornings, you know, so like I picked up boxing, like I took a deep dive on my mental health. I solo traveled to like Japan and all that shit. I went back to Pakistan. I went back home. Like I just did all this shit, dude. Like the biggest thing was the deep dive into my mental health. So like that anger is like I realized I got a diagnosis. I got diagnosed with like borderline personality disorder.
Wow.
You know, and I was like, oh, finally, like a lot of people like they get afraid of mental health because they don't want a diagnosis because they're like, fuck, it's a curse. But for me, it's an answer. It's a compass. I was like, finally, like I know why I'm so angry, because those with BPD, like borderline personality, is like literally the like, you know, the chemicals in my brain, like they move faster. So like I will feel things like the blood flow in my brain moves like faster. So like I will feel things more intensely and faster than like the quote unquote average human or those who don't have that.
Yeah.
So that was the reason why I struggled with emotional regulation and why you heard I was so angry before, you know, and I was like, this just isn't sustainable. Like at a certain point, if you're screaming all the time, you got to be like, well, this isn't really working. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need like another.
I'm screaming and now no one's listening.
Yeah, no one's listening. You know, I'm like, why is this happening? Like, you know, because you just need something else. So like, I just took a deep dive into that, and I did like, I really recommend it to people because like a lot of women actually have like BPD. I think it's amongst women more than men, but like still like amongst both groups and like just all genders. And like it's important to really get dialectic behavioral therapy. Yeah, because that's the shit that's gonna help you emotionally regulate. Is gonna help you come up with ways to deal with conflict. And just deal with yourself and love yourself and like manage these things, because it is manageable. Like especially with BPD, luckily it's a very manageable thing. A lot of people like there was like, I think a statistic of like 80% if not 90% like really learn how to deal with that in their like mid-30s, but you have to do the work. I think everyone can
100%.
Benefit from like dialectic behavioral therapy, but if you have BPD, you need that, because you won't be able to. It will be very hard for you to like find a way out or find a way through all the stuff that goes in your head. So.
I don't have a diagnosis like that, but to your point, like I started like a new I'm with a behavioral therapist now as well. And not so much for like, I don't have like anger issues and shit like that, but necessarily, but there's other things that I want to work through.
Yeah.
And what I feel as though with therapy, and like I'm a huge proponent of it. I've had plenty of conversations on this show about it from numerous occasions. And one of the things I sort of realized from my own therapy journey or mental health journey, whatever you want to call it, is I feel like the sort of regular therapy that I was receiving from a more historical context, it worked for a while, but I felt like my past therapist I was with, most recent one, great guy, like super helpful with a lot of things early on, but I felt like it got to be a point where I was just kind of just talking shit, or like I was just bitching about like my life. You know what I mean? And or like, you know, it was just kind of like a brain dump, and it wasn't really like going anywhere, if that makes sense. Like I didn't feel as though it was like helping any sort of like specific thing. Like it just felt like a vent session for an hour a week. Yeah. And while that is, I think, like it could be helpful, and it is helpful, especially if you're somebody that maybe, you know, I think we all obviously have mental health issues to whatever degree it is. But if you're like a little bit on the milder side, then maybe that type of therapy is fine. And like, you know, the more like traditional, like, all right, we're going to sit here and talk about your problems for an hour and then you're going to go. Yeah. But to really sort of like do the behavioral work is a lot much of a deeper thing. And I found myself like almost yearning for it. Like after, you know, like I just felt like this mundaneness of that sort of traditional, like, okay, you talk, I'm going to listen. And like, you know, and that's just kind of how it was. Like I would vent for an hour and my therapist would be like, well, you're doing a great job. You're hanging in there. I'm like, I don't need to hear that anymore. Like, I want to be told like, I want to be challenged. I want to be like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how can I be, you know, improve my own life or improve my behaviors or, you know, certain things that, you know, I think that I don't like about myself, or there's certain behaviors about myself that I think I should change. Like, you know, all these things that I think add up and sort of, you know, accumulate within a person. Like, you know, sometimes regular therapy just doesn't quite scratch that itch, so to speak. Yeah. And, you know, while I'm not in this like super intense like behavioral therapy thing, I'm more on that end of it now, and I feel like I'm getting more out of it because it's challenging me more. Yeah. So I think you're right in the sense of like, it's just important to make sure like you know exactly what it is you need. You know, like what are your needs, and having that self-awareness and having that tough conversation with yourself. And it sounds like you did have that of like, all right, I need to make a change because like I can't keep going on like this, and I need an answer. And even if I don't love that answer and what it is, okay, well at least it's a step in the right direction, and I can confidently sit there and say, all right, you know what, at least I am now diagnosed, or at least I now have like a direction I can go in, instead of just kind of being like, well, I'm nervous about what that diagnosis or what that answer is going to be, so let me just avoid it altogether.
That's real. No, exactly. Like, and it is scary. Like, you know, it's hard, especially coming from certain communities. Like we've talked about, like communities.
Yeah. Especially you coming from an immigrant family, right? And like, you know, especially I feel like a lot of like European, but also a lot of Middle Eastern and Asian. You know, there's like, I don't want to say communities, and more or less of like that old school mentality of like, we're not going to talk about feelings. It's not something that's really like, you know, I know there's a lot of like ethnic groups that can relate to that, especially as being an Italian, like coming from the Italian background. You wouldn't think like Italian background like traditionally has a lot in common with maybe like an Asian or a Middle Eastern background, but there's a lot of those like, while there's a ton of differences, don't get me wrong, there's some of these like very like minute and very specific similarities that are huge, that are common throughout a bunch of different types of ethnic backgrounds. It's really a fascinating thing, truthfully.
It is, yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times it honestly comes down to like gender roles.
I
think those feel like those like the similar parts of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that grandiose image of what a man should be, like a macho man. Like, you know, like no cry. Like that's another thing with the mental health. It's like, well, don't talk about your feelings. Just swallow it. Get money. And like, you know, so many people are like, oh, you should just fuck. Yeah. Like or just drink or do drugs. And I'm like, that's not working. They're like, no, you just got to keep doing it. And I'm like, what? Like, you know, so many times after my breakup, I'm like processing my emotions. Like, yeah, bro, you just got to keep fucking, bro. And I'm like, yeah, I've been fucking, man. But like, it's not really, I'm not having a good time. Like, I feel empty. They're like, you just got to keep doing it. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Isn't that like the definition of insanity? Like, you just keep doing something, the same thing, and expecting different results. Yeah. Like, that's crazy, you know? Yeah. But like, that's the thing. A lot of men, and like, they think that. And I feel like we've talked about like you coming from that, like, you know, Italian background. You were fed that. And me coming from this Pakistani background, I was fed that. Like, that's still like a thing, you know? So like, that's why it's sometimes hard to even talk about that mental health stuff and find that diagnosis, because, you know, you might be given this answer, but then now your community, you know, you come to them, specifically like your intermediate family, right? Let's go with that, like, or your friends, you know, and you start getting judged, and you start feeling like that worst fear of you being this monster, or you being this, you know, thing that's not fit for society is a terrible feeling. And you're worried that fear is going to be a truth reinforced. And sometimes it is. And then at that point, you're just like, why the fuck am I here?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's when it gets real dark. And then like,
Really bad.
And then it can get, like you said, it can get really, really bad. Isn't it fascinating? I think it's kind of a different conversation. I don't want to get too far off because I love what we're talking about right now. But like, I just find it so fascinating about how similar we are.
Oh yeah, dude. It's crazy.
Not just you and me, but I mean just like people. Bro. Like okay, Pakistani people, and I'll put like 3 different groups out there. Like, I'll put Chinese people, Pakistani, and Italians, right? Like, very different traditions, very different food styles, very different like ways of life in a lot of ways, but value-wise, there's still, I think, some commonality in like the not traditions, but like traditionally how like we're talking about gender roles are supposed to be, like, you know what I mean? And I think you could probably pick a bunch of different other ethnicities, and you could kind of see like a lot of commonality there. So it's really, I think, fascinating when you think about it from that perspective of like, yeah, we are very different, and there's a lot of different the beautiful ways that make us all very different, from whether it be gender or sexuality or ethnicity, race, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there's like some societal things that are very deep rooted that are just, I mean, it's got to be just kind of a human nature thing, right? I mean, it probably goes back to ancient civilizations of the way in which, like men had to be these warriors or these gladiators or these providers or these, hunters. And then, women were more nurturing. And I think we're seeing now that, putting people in those boxes is not really a great thing.
No, it's not. Yeah, like, like I understand, it's important to be aware of these differences to an extent, but I do see like, it's like, yeah, we might have different, foods and everything, but we both like to eat. Both our people, like all these people, like we like to eat, different music, but we also like to dance, and we like to listen to music and have that culture, like that's still there. Like at the end of the day, like there are a lot of similarities that, like, I feel like I actually learned more in New York. Like I feel like being in Massachusetts, like I think I was just like in my honestly more so my experience with Massachusetts painted it a lot. I dealt with a lot of racism. I dealt with a lot of just like navigating whiteness and everything, you know?
Yep.
And then when I got to New York and I was able to get like a fresh new start, I thought less about that. I used to like have this like fear for like white folk and everything and Now I don't. I've lost that, and that's why I sound lighter. That's why I'm not that angry anymore, because like I understand experiences and everything, but at the end of the day, having that hatred in you is gonna weigh you down. You can have apprehension and caution and like move smart and have your values for sure. Be with people who are with the shits. Like I understand that, but when it comes to like having hatred, like actual hatred, that's just gonna fuck you up. And that's why I like literally have nightmares about me to Cocaine Jasper to the fall is like that progression was like I got to zoom out, and at the end of the day, like the people, there's more similarities that you have with the human being, and it's beautiful when you can connect on that. And that's why I love New York. I feel like I was able to do that more. Like, my favorite thing about New York is like walking around and just the small convos I have. Like I had flowers in my hand one time, and this woman at a store, like a boutique store, just looking through the window. She's like, "Those for me?" I was like, "Yeah, here you go." We're just laughing our asses off, And like I'm just talking to like the guy halal car, or my friend at the deli, and just like the mailman, and just like talking to these people, or just random people in the streets. Like I'm coming with groceries. This one woman, like was like, "What type of rice you got?" I was like, "A zebra long grain." I'll put people on zebra long grain rice, dude. That's the best rice. That's the best basmati rice you could get. The zebra long grain, you can get it from Amazon. They should sponsor me, but that shit is the best fucking rice ever. She stopped. She's like, "Is that?" I was like, "This is the best rice." She's like, "Okay, I gotta cook tonight." I was like, "You should get it." I was like, "Here's the Amazon. It's on Amazon." It's just small, and I don't know, like it just makes you. It made me feel a lot lighter, It made me feel more connected to myself and to others.
Yeah, and you sound lighter, not only in your music, but as like as a everyday human being, which is cool. Which has got to feel good. That's got to feel like a weight lifted.
I feel really good, man.
As you should be, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I love it. So yeah, The Fall is out now. It's on all streaming platforms. We're gonna link it in the description. Make sure you guys check out the project. And when you kind of look at it from that perspective too, like when you zoom out, I'm glad you said that, because it's like when I look back at your own discography as well, like it really is so telling. The Have Nightmares About Me, the Cocaine Jasper, to where you're at. Like, and the next question, one of the last questions I want to ask you about music wise is, I think I could be wrong, but this is just my theory. There was a slight teaser at the end of The Fall. I feel like that beat It Will Be Okay is very out of place with the rest of the project. It feels lighter. It feels a little bit
Oh
more
yeah, the instrumental track.
happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like happy is maybe like just such a like a mundane, like simple word.
No,
but
it's facts, though.
like it had a lot more of like a hopeful tone to it. Yeah. So like, are we gonna get a more lush, hopeful, nice sounding TAHA album ever? Is that ever gonna be in the cards, or is that like not something? Am I reading too deep into that?
I don't know. I gotta think about that. I gotta show you. We'll talk after. I gotta show you the beats because the next project, honestly, I feel like this project allowed me to end a story, and now I'm just trying to have a good time. Like,
Cool.
all these new beats is like it's still that gritty nature, but it's like kind of more dance oriented and like fun oriented. But
You feel like you've been able to close that door, that chat, like this chapter of TAHA's music is kind of closed. You
for a
feel like?
bit, you know.
Yeah.
Like the other ones, there'll still be that message there, but it's more like I kind of want to make some cool shit. There is lushness though with these new beats though, like because I've been really getting into granular synthesis, which is a beautiful thing where you can take a sound and just spit it by grains, where you get like this lushness, you know. And so, that's there in a way. I think like I've showed the beat to my friends and they're like, "This is beautiful." So I'd say yes and no, like, but that was like very much inspired by Tyler the Creator. Like that was very much inspired by that last track that he had on Flower Boy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Right there.
that was that last track, and so
Yeah.
that was more like to end it. And also to contradict the last track or the last track of the last album, which was
The Coke and Jasper. Yeah.
where it said, I think it will end, and I was like, it will be okay. And I wanted to contradict that to let people know that like it could be okay. I wanted my mom just reached out. She was like, you make your music so sad, like, you know. She was like, your music, you're so angry. Why are you so angry? Why are you so sad? Make something happy. And I was like, you're right. Okay. I was like, all right, mom. So I was like, let me make something happy. You know, I wanted to end it on something nice, and that track has given a lot of people peace that I'd ever thought. I had friends go through grief, and they were like, my friends reaching out to my friend like, yo, like, I heard this person died, you good? And they were like, they just send them that track. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna be okay. They're like on a sunset just listening to that track and put on their story. Awesome. Like, hey, I'm going through this, but I think it's gonna be okay. I've had a lot of people be like, this is like my favorite song, you know. And like at first I felt the type of way because I was like, my vocals aren't on it. But then, you know, I was like, what you mean by that? But then that's a nice thing about being a producer. Where I was like, I did produce that whole shit. I did produce that. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh no, am I not talented? You know, like you start freaking out a bit. But then like I'm like, wait, I produced that, so it's good. I loved having. I had no words for that because that whole beat does all the talking. So I'd say there's definitely like there will be like a nice. There will be like the other stuff I think is like really fun and like. You know, there's still going to be always that grit because I love that grit. Yeah. But I think that even that track, you know, there's a dip and there's like a certain point where like it starts off with these beautiful angelic synths, you know, and they're like kind of like this call and response and like these steady drums. But then there's like a slight dip for a second where it's like, you know, kind of like the person's contemplating. And it's like, I try to, Pierce, shout out to Pierce. He really described, he said that track was like a kind of like a slice of life. Like it really captures like a life story.
I like that.
You know, like there's the happiness and there's the lull, and then in the moment, the lull and the happiness kind of those moments like they come together. And then I had shout out to Jxylen, my friend Jxylen.
Jxylen's fire. We're gonna get him on here pretty soon because I really like where his direction's going with his music and what he's doing now, social media wise. I know he's being a little bit more like front facing, and that's not like something he wants to do. But it's cool. But he's very profound. I like a lot of the content he's putting out right now. I think it's really. It's been great. It's been great to like see because like he's an artist I've always been familiar with, but I didn't know a lot about. And it's nice to be able to get to know him a little bit better through like what he's doing now. So big shout out to Jxylen. I think he's and obviously contributed on your project. He
did, yeah. He was on doing some background stuff and everything. I have some actual like other beats me and him been going back and forth on. He's a very very talented soul and a very good friend. And like I remember he sent me because I sent him some tracks and he was just like he just caught it. You know, he caught the emotion. He was like, you're really trying to prove something on this. You know, prove to yourself that you could stand on your own. Prove to others that, hey, just because you're falling doesn't mean you can't land. You know, prove to yourself that you are a talented musician, producer, rapper, singer, just artist. It's like, there's a lot here, and I feel it, and you're doing it, and I'm just really happy you're making music again. And this album, and I to have his message on that, it just like was like a full circle moment. Like there's something beautiful about being like him saying like I can't wait for the album to drop at the last track. For me, it helps you like be like I want to listen to this again. I don't know. For me, it helps you want to rewind it right back.
Yeah.
And if you loop it, it loops right back so well. Like it will be okay to fall back is so sick, dude. Like That shit was crazy. Doing that shit live, fallback live with the band in it. We gotta talk. That shit was crazy too, man.
Oh yeah, you've been performing a lot, like performing this album a lot out in New York.
Yeah, dude. Like the biggest, I've done it like a few shows now with the new album. Was awesome. You know, it's been getting good like hype. It's always cool to like just like experiment with different types of like, you know, performance. Like, okay, I'm gonna do a band here, I'm just gonna do me here, you know. But like when I did it with the album release party that I did, and that was awesome. That was such a good time. I had a band with me. And it was so sick, like Fallback and like
some of those songs I feel like would go great with a live band.
Dude,
100%.
like, yeah, we did all the tracks. Like, I had a shout out to Go Island Go, one of the best drummers in New York fucking city. Like, he was on that shit. He was drumming live with me. Then shout out Caleb Reese, fantastic guitarist. He was on the fucking guitar with me. We only had like 2 rehearsals, and then we did it. And also, they weren't gonna like perform with me on the first track and the last track. And then they just come up. They're like, we're doing it. I was like, fuck yeah. And then they just improv'd it and they killed it.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
That's
dude.
so cool.
Amazing.
I love that shit, man.
That shit fire,
good shit.
Bro.
You had mentioned Pierce, and you guys just recently, as we're recording this, you guys just recently shot like a new visualizer or a short film for the project. So I don't know when it'll be out. I know this will be probably around February, early February when this is dropping, this episode. So I don't know if the actual project will be out, but tell us a little bit about it, whether it's out now or whether it's about to be close. Like, just give us a little insight about what it is. If it's out now, we'll link it in the description. But
it's it'd probably be March. We're gonna have a viewing party in New York. Pull up, bro.
I would love that, bro. I'll come.
That'd
Absolutely.
We'll
March is actually a lull month for me, so let's do it.
Word, because we're probably gonna get like a theater and everything. So like, yeah,
dude, I'd love to come out for a night.
That'd be fire.
Let's do
All
it.
right, easy.
Let's do it.
That shit. That film. Oh my god, dude! That
visually, he's just incredible. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Pierce is amazing.
Pierce is amazing.
Shout out Pierce.
Pierce.
Great soul.
Yeah,
great soul.
Super talented.
Yeah, great beard.
At everything he does.
Yeah, very handsome.
Beard
fellow.
gang.
Yeah, beard gang. Yes, facts, bro. Like, he's great. Yeah, like working with him again. We haven't seen each other in like a while. So when I was like chopping it up with him, it was awesome. And he was like, he said it too. He was like, you sound so light, man, and like. Just chopping it up about artistry and like dating and everything. Like, it was so good. I got to cook for him too. That shit was fire. I made him shakshuka, bro. Like, I put like
nice
mint and parsley on top. He was like eating it. He was like, "What? This is crazy," And I was like, "Of course." And like, it was beautiful, man. Like, I'm still very DIY in a lot of ways. So we had a small crew of just like me, Pierce, so the director of photography. My friend Madeline, shout out Madeline. She directed the whole thing. So she was the director and she killed it. And then shout out my homie Nika. She was taking photos behind the scene, but literally became like the makeup artist, like a stylist, like a choreographer for like, we had a boxing scene in it. So she was choreographing that and like, like makeup artist, photographer, like just production assistant. Like she killed it. She was acting in it too.
Dope.
She fucking killed it. So that was the main people helping out. Then shout out my friend Brendan too. He helped out a bit too. And like, he was like, he had like these smoke cans. He was like doing the smoke and everything. It was crazy. But
is this a short film for the entire project? Or are you just doing like it's every song then?
Yeah, it was kind of inspired by like Tierra Whack. Tierra Whack had Whack.
Yeah,
World.
bro. Yeah. I just did a not just did. It was now probably close to not 6 months, but a little bit less. I did a very similar video project with an artist by the name of Jeff Porter.
That's fire.
And we did a snippet of each song on his EP, and each song visually kind of like blended into the next. That's and it sits as a standalone, like 6 minute, like music video experience, visual experience. I would call it visual experience.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's like a 6 minute visual experience that integrates every single song in it. Yeah. But then we have micro content, so each thing has its own standalone piece as well. So very inspired by Tierra Whack as well, just from like that Whack World, which is one of my favorite visual experiences from any album I've ever seen, because I love that each song's a minute and it just kind of bleeds into the next.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. So it's like, that's exactly what it is. That's so cool that you already know that shit.
Yep.
That's literally
already read on it with you. Oh, I can't wait to see it then. That's awesome.
It's awesome, dude. It was like very much like, it's like loosely based off of Dante's Inferno. So it's like The Fall, right? So it's kind of like descending, and each scene is like loosely based off a track, and but also like a circle of hell. So, just kind of like talking about this fall and like loosely based, right? So like, like with Greed, we have like a poker scene. And I'm like, that was so much fun. that whole thing was so much fun. Like my favorite scenes is like gluttony scene, and I'm just like eating all this food like ravenously, right? And I'm just like shoving it in my face and like everything, and like the match cuts were amazing. Like shout out Madeline, she directed it. The match cuts are like the transitions are crazy. So like you know, there's this one scene where I'm like eating everything, and then there's these apples, and I just grab it and I eat it, and then you see it fall out of my hand. The next scene is like my hand's out, and I catch the apple, like the apple that has a bite in it, and I'm like, and now in the poker scene. So I'm looking at this apple, I just throw it behind me, and now I'm like in this poker scene with all these people, and we're just smoking cigars, and like, you know, we just like dealing poker. I'm like looking at my cards, I'm like, shit, I don't know if I'm gonna win this, you know, and like just like so many beautiful moments in that, like, you know, like there was this, it was so much fun, and we just got to film a lot of cool shit. Like there's like a fight scene, you know, like a boxing scene where I get fucked. I do okay, but like I'm getting fucked. Like I remember my friend was like, "You better win that shit," because I was like posting these selfies, and the makeup was so good. Like shout out Nika, because she did this makeup, and everyone's they're like, "Yo, what the fuck happened? Like what the fuck happened to you, bro?"
It's crazy.
It was crazy. This one dude was wild. He like saw that, and he sent me a video of him like all bloodied up, and he's like, "Yeah, me, you are the same, bro. We're just outside." And I was like, "Yeah, facts." And I was like, in reality, just fucking makeup.
Just
like,
makeup.
That shit was crazy, dude. Like,
that's awesome.
Dude, so many people sliding in my DMs just off blood. Like, there's some like weird shit to that. That shit was crazy. Like, I don't know. I was like, no one's asking me if I'm okay. You know, I was like, they're like, "Oh, you look hot." I was like, "I'm fucking. You don't know what happened." That shit was crazy, bro. But like, nah, dude, it was like overall like a beautiful moment. I think the film is fantastic. It'll be like a short thing, right? So it'll be like 9-10 minutes long, but like I think it captures every song. And then you can take that content, because you know you gotta play the content game. So you could take all of that, and now you have a shit ton. Like if you really spice it nice, that's if you're posting every day, you got a month, if not a little bit more, pieces of content.
That's exactly how Jeff and I did ours.
That's it.
100%. And that's exactly how we did it.
That's it.
And it worked out well.
That's crazy.
So I think that's the new age of, not to say that I don't think like the traditional music video is going to die necessarily, but I think that's the move.
I think that's the move.
Do like a short film or a visual experience that incorporates every single aspect of the project, EP, whatever the heck it is, and then chop it up and have micro content.
Yeah, exactly.
And make it so that way you can have micro content.
Exactly, because you have the long form. If someone's like, "I want a long," like each of the micro content promotes the long form, which promotes the album.
It's the best, and it's the best of both worlds.
It's amazing.
Instead of just putting all your eggs in one basket of like, well, I want to do a music video. What song should I pick? You know, now it's like you can incorporate all of it. So
no, for real, dude.
Love it.
That's crazy.
It's awesome. Last thing I want to ask you about, it's going to be a little diversion. This will be like my little version of pop quiz on this one, even though we didn't do a traditional pop quiz on this episode. You love to cook.
I do, yeah.
You post yourself cooking all the time.
I be cooking.
You be cooking, bro. I want you to give me 3 signature dishes. If you were opening up a restaurant and you had 3 signature dishes that were going to be like your main courses, or not main courses, but like main dishes, what would those 3 dishes be? Like the 3 best ones. And then what is one dish that you have not mastered yet that you really want to master?
Oh, this is crazy. All right, first one, the homies know chicken keema. Like my chicken keema is just this ground chicken dish, super simple. Just like you put like some South Asian spices like garam masala, you put some coriander, some cumin, some red chili powder, you know, and you just chop up some green chilies, turmeric, black pepper. You just put all these spices on the ground chicken. You just put it all together. If you want to mix it up, you can throw in potatoes and like, you know, green peppers. But it's just literally like spiced ground chicken and on rice, and everyone loves it. Like that shit goes crazy. Like that shit's amazing.
Okay.
So I would do that. That's one.
Okay.
Boom. Next one. Let me think. Has to be my chicken rice bowls, because those go crazy. I cooked that for my family. My dad was like gassing up his group chat. He's like, "Look what my son made me." And they're like, "Whoa, what? Can you make it for us?" He's like, "No, fuck you." Like, you know, he's just like, so like that shit was crazy. Like, yeah, awesome. It's simple. It's just like these. You just get this chicken. You marinate it for like minimum like 30 minutes. You really should do it for 24 hours if you really want
to get
that
like
juice.
to get the flavor out of it.
Me?
Yeah.
So you put a bunch of these spices, lemon juice, yogurt, all that, marinated, grill it, shit, or put it on a pan. You know, like pan fry that real quick, just 5 minutes on each side. Then you put it out, and then you know you get like all the spices in for like the rice. Like I put a lot of spices in my rice. You know, if you put it in a rice cooker, it's easy. You just put everything in the rice cooker, mix it, and then boom. So you get like a yellow basmati rice. You want that. The turmeric gives it that yellow color. You do that, then you chop a mint salad on the side. So you put the rice, the chicken, the mint salad. You make your own homemade yogurt sauce. Boom, that shit's hit.
Damn, make me hungry.
That shit hard, bro. And then the next one, I gotta do something vegetarian. Ooh, probably like my aloo gobi. So that's potatoes and cauliflower.
Okay.
So it's like, as a lot of these similar spices, you put it together, but a nice trick is you could put some soy sauce on it too. So you put that in, and like it really gives it a different flavor, like what's it called, umami or an unami flavor. Yeah, it gives it that, and you put that on like rice, or sometimes I can make like homemade roti. So I'd probably put that, and then boom, and those are like my three.
Those are the three?
Those are the three. Yeah.
What's one dish that you want to master, that you want to start getting better at, but you're not quite there yet?
Shit, probably like, there's a few. Probably nahari is like a Pakistani dish. I need to master that. It's like a beef. It's like, for the grocery simplify it, it's like a beef stew.
Okay.
But like people have said, some people have said it's like the best dish in the world. Like it's just so good because you put a lot of love in that. So you just really on this stove, and you just like slow cooking it. You put all these spices. You gotta make sure you got bone in there. If you're doing a stew and meat, you gotta have some bone, because that really gives it that density. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I like that personally. And so like, and then that on top of any rice or like any like roti or anything or naan goes crazy. So I really gotta master that. My mom be like, I learned all these from my mom. Shout out my mom, dude. I really be... Shout out moms, dude. Shout out moms.
Moms are good at...
Bro.
Yeah,
Moms.
I learned a lot of like my little tricks from my mom too, and I'm cooking. And yeah, you seem like you are very... I mean, I cook for efficiency purposes. Like I'm like, all right, like, yeah, it tastes fine, but I'm a pretty good cook. I wouldn't say I'm like exquisite or extravagant or anything like that. I can make like simple dishes with volume that will last days in our fridge, and that we can have for meals like throughout the week and stuff like that, or like meal prepping and whatnot. So I cook more for volume and efficiency than I do like always for like the incredible taste, so to speak. But having said all that, one cuisine we absolutely love in our house is, I got my fiance big into it, is Indian food.
Dude.
It's so good, bro.
It's
like,
crazy.
And I mean, it's hard to make on your own. So I commend you for making it, because I know that like can be anywhere from fucking 20 to 30 different spices that go into these things.
It's crazy.
But we love Indian food, bro. Like I got my family into it as well. Like my mom and my brothers, like they're starting to really like enjoy it as well. I think it's just the best. Crazy enough, the best Indian dish I have ever had was in Portugal. Believe it or not.
Word.
Crazy. You never would think in Portugal you'd have good Indian food.
That's fire.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And there's a lot of good spots near me, like like towards the city, like in Boston. Like there's a lot of good spots. There's a spot in Everett we love to go to called Zuzumomo, which is really, really good. But yeah, dude, the best Indian dish I ever had was in Portugal. Weirdly enough.
Fire.
But anyway,
crazy.
Love that. If you haven't tried Indian cuisine, you're tripping. You got to fucking eat it.
Also, you should just learn how to cook. Cooking Riz has helped me so much. I'm not gonna lie. Like, cooking Riz is crazy, and you save money.
Really do.
It's crazy.
You really do.
It's amazing. Like, people are like, "Wow, you're cooking for me." You're like, "Yeah, I'm cooking for you." It's like, I'm really just saving money.
Exactly.
And I also get leftovers, and you think I'm amazing. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, it's better for you. It's more nutritious.
Yes.
You're saving money. I mean, that's why. Yeah. I mean, we cook all the time. That's why a part of me like doesn't love the holidays, because like I don't cook as much during the holidays because we're always in so many different areas, and then it's just like, and I feel like shit because I'm eating out more, or I'm eating at these gatherings and stuff like that. Like, I almost can't wait for like the first we're obviously giving away the time in which we are recording this episode right now, but I actually can't wait for the new year, the start of the new year, so that way I can get back into my cooking routine, because I feel like I just feel better when I'm doing that. It is important.
It's a meditative process. I don't know. It's like, I feel like it's just
I like it. Meditative is a good point, because like I do feel like it's a way to almost like I can like escape my life for 30 minutes to an hour and like actually just focus on cooking and like making a meal. Like, I actually like it. I'm actually starting to enjoy it.
That's crazy.
So
it's a beautiful thing, man.
It is.
It's beautiful.
Well, Taha, I'm so glad we got to have you back here. It's been a long time. We had to have you back in the new studio. I mean, we had you on Zoom twice. Honestly, even though Taha's been on this show 3 times, I feel like the first 2 hardly count, because he's now in studio, in person. We haven't done an in-person shoot yet, so we had to make it happen. But man, just congratulations on not only your music and coming, I think that the project's an awesome body of work, and sort of the comeback, and I can't wait for the short film. But biggest congratulations to getting your mental health right, because that is the most important thing out of anything. We sit here for hours and talk music, creative, all that stuff. But if you are not right mentally, none of it fucking matters. So I am very, very proud of you and very grateful that you are in a better spot mentally than you were. And I think it's very reflective right now in the flesh here, but also in the music. So I want to commend you for all that.
That's love.
Always love, bro. You know that. We know we love you.
Thanks, bro.
Last thing, all you got to do is plug away. Let people know where they can find you. And anyone else you want to shout out, go for it.
Yeah, man. My music's out on all the things. Tidal if you're bougie, SoundCloud if you're going through it. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. It's on all of that, and like, just bump it. It's a good track. My favorite tracks are Fall Forward. I love Pop Off and I love Send Them Off. Those are like my three. But Fall Forward's an amazing track and Pop Off's a hype track. If you're going to bump that in the whip, be careful because you will just like, you'll go at light speed. Like you won't even recognize it because it's just that hype. It's crazy. So like, I don't know. Shout out Pierce. Shout out my mom. Shout out Nika. She was the photographer. She be like taking all these good photos and was like so helpful with the film. Shout out Madeline. Shout out fucking Turntable teachers, bro.
Respect.
Like I really don't know anyone who really does it like you here. Like such a warm, welcoming environment. If you haven't come to these studios, like you should just pull up. Just pull up to just see it because it's like a beautiful environment. Like no bullshit. And I'm coming from New York. Like there's like all these super high end fucking studios, but like something that beats any fucking building and studio is just the people in it. And these people are really warm. Like the whole team here, I've met them and they're really good people. Like they'll just talk to you like as a human and like as you like they're really curious about you and they're like, it's just such a beautiful vibe here. And this is me coming from that, you call it this Mecca of America and the musician, whatever. This is a beautiful spot. This stands with that, it's a beautiful spot here. So seriously, like shout out Turntable teachers, man. And shout out, I don't know, just shout out everything, bro. Like shout out music, shit. Shout out me, bro. I'm happy I fucking figured some of this shit out. I still got a journey to go, but I'm just...
We all do.
But if it wasn't for my friends and my family, I'd be fucked. You being one of them, man. So just love all around.
Well, we all need support in times of, trials and tribulations, and, I'm glad to have played even a small role in that, helping you out. So, and it's good to see you.
Good to see
you.
you.
Always good to see you, bro. And if you're a fan of TAHA, just being introduced to us for the first time, you can find us at Turntable Teachers on Instagram, TikTok. Obviously, you can hit up our website, turntableteachers.com. And of course, if you're an artist, podcaster, or content creator of any kind, make sure to hit us up at aoastudios.org to book your session or service today, or just come pop out to like one of our events that we run here, or like our quarterly stuff, or just come say hey, just come hang out. We're like Taha said. I think Taha sold it better than I did, but we are. I feel like that's kind of like a pride thing. We pride ourselves on being welcoming here at AOA Studios, and that's hopefully the the narrative that we're providing and giving off. So anyway, much shout out to you for saying all that, and it felt very heartfelt. So
of course,
appreciate that. Yeah. But as always, guys, till next time, I'm Mike. That's Taha with the Turntable Teachers, and class is officially dismissed.